I'm Mike Wall. I the last place I was living was Austin, Texas. I consider myself a California kid from the United States. Um, I played football in the National Football League for 11 years, 7 with the Green Bay Packers, 3 with the Carolina Panthers, and the last one with the Seattle Seahawks. I went into finance after that, actually, and then about 4 or 5 years later, I got sucked back into football. My one of my assistant coaches was the head coach with the Miami Dolphins. I had a couple of good friends and teammates that I'd played with the Packers that had gone down there for like a 2 week kind of summer coaching experience, just to get back into it. And they called me up and they said, "Man, you got to try this. You're gonna remember how much you missed the sport." And I went down there, and we had a lot of things going on at the time, my wife and I. And I went down there for 2 weeks, and I remember calling her up and saying, "Let's shut everything down. I got to get back into football. I just miss being around sports. I miss being around the athletes and the opportunity to kind of help other people live out that dream that I got to live." So I went back into the National Football League for, I want to say, maybe 4 years with the Miami Dolphins. I was a position coach. I worked with the sports performance department, and I was the NFL's first full-time skill development specialist. After that, I decided that the impact that I could have would maybe be greater if I worked with individual athletes. So I went out and started consulting with a couple teams, but really working with individuals on a year-round basis, helping them prepare for the season, but also helping them develop during the season, which I think is maybe a lost art in a lot of NFL buildings these days. So that brings me to here. I met with Andy Meyer. I met him online. He's a linebackers coach for the Galaxy, and he was looking for people to speak at a couple of his coaching clinics over here in Europe. I did a couple of those and eventually came over and we ran a couple uh, offensive line clinics and then some other coaching clinics here in and around Mannheim. Through there, I met Coach Thomas and Eric and the Galaxy family, and saw an opportunity to come over here and do something, quite frankly, is right in my wheelhouse, which is help develop not only the players on this team, but also from a coaching standpoint, from an organization standpoint, come in and maybe help develop this team and certainly this league. This league is, for someone like me, is very interesting. The NFL is kind of a big machine now, and they started with your draft and develop philosophy. Then you went into free agency, and the money has gotten so big that we're really into maximizing value, or maximizing revenue and brand management. And for me, like, I'm a meat and potatoes guy. I just want to help guys deliver value. I want to help guys develop. I want to put a great product out on the field. And so a lot of the stuff that's going on there really isn't as interesting to me anymore. But over here, I just see this kind of incredible opportunity to have a large impact with a franchise and a community that really is starting to love American football. Yeah, so I was lucky enough to come over. I've been watching all the games. The coaching staff and Eric have been sharing the game film with me, and so I've been able to see, I think, most of the games during the season. But to see it live and really to see it here in the stadium, I wasn't sure what to expect. It's still kind of a relatively new sport over here in Germany. Um, I think the fan experience in Frankfurt, first and foremost, was much more impressive than maybe I was expecting. It was really, really good. High level engagement. The Everything that goes on from we call it tailgating, but that was fantastic. The energy in the stands was great. The MC was great. The songs that you sing are hilarious. So I loved all of that. As we're talking specifically with the field, you can see that the development of the sport has been kind of going on here for a while now. There's guys on this team, like Steven Nielsen is a great example of a guy who honestly is like a couple blades of grass away from playing in the NFL. I mean, he's that kind of talent. So the talent is there. Is it as abundant maybe as it is in America? Certainly not, because this is our number one sport. But I see with the Frankfurt Galaxy, you see a great organization with a great community. There's a heavy sense of I guess almost like a family feel here, maybe more so, certainly more so than you would feel in the National Football League at this point, just to begin, because the businesses are becoming so big. A lot of them used to be owned by families, and maybe 20, 30 years ago, you might feel something more akin to what we feel in Frankfurt right now. But they do a really good job of keeping this community close, certainly through good times and bad as a performance, as it pertains to the performance on the field. I think as you see more Americans come over here in coaching roles, you're going to see an evolution of what is being run offensively and defensively. The game continues to evolve at an incredibly high level, starting really with the high school teams over in the United States and then carrying on to college. And eventually the NFL is usually the recipient of a lot of work that these guys do at the high school and the college level. And you can see with some teams, they're starting to evolve and adapting some of these NFL offenses and defenses, and just thinking about the game a little bit differently. Certainly there's room for, let's say, I like to call things areas of opportunity. Deficiencies seems negative, but areas of opportunity, just the way you're going about business has to always evolve. You have to look at everything from how you game plan to how you meet with your players, how you're installing, how you teach. What mechanisms do you teach with Gen Z players and athletes? What does that look like from a attention standpoint? The way that you practice, the hours that you practice, all of the preparation stuff that is critical to success is really, I think, warrants being kind of combed through or looked under. How do I say that right? I think all the aspects of preparation deserve to be looked at with some scrutiny and see if we can kind of provide best practice as it pertains to the Frankfurt Galaxy. And then, when you put a product on the field in this sport, when you have, generally speaking, across all teams, the athletes are going to be somewhat similar. Like there's this bandwidth of talent across the entire league. There's not a group that has so much more talent than others. So it really just comes down to, who's preparing the best to be successful, who's gaining the most confidence from their preparation. And that's kind of been, when I think about athlete development and think about the things I've been doing for the last 10, 15 years, or even maybe longer than that as a player and now as more on the coaching side, that's really what my life's all been about is how do I help athletes gain the confidence that is required to be successful. So I think from that standpoint, there's a lot of meat on the bone as far as just, again, going through and scrutinizing some of the practices and principles that we have now. How can we make those better so that these athletes can get on the field on Saturdays and Sundays and just feel supremely confident that they're ready to go out there, play fast and play free, gives them the best chance to win. How do you carry this out? Well, it starts with how we started to approach the offseason already. We have a strategy team in place, led by our general manager, our president, and we are going through every one of these priorities. We're going through, when you have a losing season, obviously, we have ownership, you have fan expectations. So you kind of have to start with some really fundamental questions, maybe that we don't need to get into too much. But as it pertains to field-facing operations and the players, we're going to address all of the items that I just discussed. Like, athletes, from an athlete perspective, when you talk about sports and being successful, when you talk about athletes and organizations, the relationship is very simple. It's, can an organization put a player to be, can an organization put a player in a position to be successful? And then can they give them the tools to find success? And so we have to start with this. Are we doing everything from a structural standpoint? Are we practicing? Are we teaching our coaches how to install and how to communicate? Do we have kind of a one voice mentality that trickles down from the head coach to every position coach? Do we have all of that in place so that we can maximize our effectiveness and our efficiency? And then we need to get down to, are we giving them the tools to be successful? So are they technical masters? Do they have the right frame of mind when they come into practice, when they come into games? Do they know how to prepare for opponents? Do they know what to look at when they're watching film? All of those things, I think we can really take large steps towards during the offseason, and that's part of the off-season program that I've developed for, I think, starting in October for the Frankfurt Galaxy. And we're gonna do a fantastic job of getting these guys bigger, faster, stronger. I think anybody who, when you think about America, like, what do we do pretty well? That's what we do pretty well. We can develop athletes. So that part of the game is actually not as difficult maybe as some of the other things. And what I get really excited about is, along with that, in a more of a holistic way to help these athletes gain that confidence, is, every time we go to work out, we're going to be working also on our technical mastery. We're going to have mindset development, roundtable discussions. We're going to learn how to study film. We're going to have Zoom sessions with different groups every week. We're going to have field sessions on Saturdays that help you improve your blocking and tackling. We'll have clinics for some of those. We'll have camps in the area that help bring in kind of younger athletes and guys that are more interested in or are starting to get interested in the game and trying to build that kind of pipeline of future Galaxy players and fans. So I think there's a lot of really exciting things that are going to be coming down the pike here, really starting in October. Certainly from a player development standpoint, but also just helping this organization kind of grow into the magnet club that we want to be from the ELF standpoint, and then continue to grow that fan base and hopefully grow in a pipeline of really good athletes that want to become Frankfurt Galaxy players, in 10, 15 years. Well, that's an interesting question. Why is it? Because I think Germany has the largest fan base in Europe. I think I read that. There's millions of people. It's actually more than the UK, which I wouldn't have guessed based on the fact they've been having games over there for a little bit longer. Well, I think culturally it makes sense from a German standpoint, at least the way that Americans view Germans. It makes sense. We see these kind of strong Nordic people that want to be compete in physical activities. This is one of those sports that is a grind. So if you like having a routine and creating habits and making that kind of part of your success plan, then this is definitely a sport for you. And football is, as much as football has changed from when I played, football is still an incredibly fun sport to watch. There's the threat of violence. There's the threat of chaos. There's the opportunity to see one human physically overtake somebody else. I mean, I played left guard in the National Football League, and if you asked me what my favorite thing to do in the world was, it was to take a human and move him somewhere that he didn't want to be. And I think, from gladiator days, everybody wants to see that at some level. That's an exciting part of this sport. And so when we talk about confrontational sports and one-on-one battles, you certainly have your football, my soccer, you have your basketball, and those are interesting. But when you're just talking about this really kind of visceral at base level, I need to move you out of the spot you want to be in, it doesn't get much better than this sport. Certainly, I think the Galaxy is understanding that last season, from a fan base standpoint, from a player standpoint, coaches and ownership, that's not where they want to be. That's not who they think they are. They won this league. I think it's an inaugural season 4 years ago, and we've talked about it. In order to develop, you have to evolve. This is a great market. You have a great fan base already. And so how do we improve? Like from my standpoint, I always look at this as, how does an organization achieve what I just call perpetual supremacy, meaning that you have the expectation to win every single season? Well, you have to put the processes in place that allow that to grow and develop. And I think Eric has done such a wonderful job this year of understanding that a change needs to be made, bringing in people to help make that change, and then being across the board, Coach Thomas, everyone, just being really open to saying, look, I know we've done things a certain way forever, but we're going to do things what I call best practice in order to make this organization the best it can be. And that's not just the product on the field, although from my perspective, that is the most important thing. But that's how we deal or interact with the fan base. That's how we develop pipelines for younger football players to become better, become understanding more of how we do business, of the Galaxy way, and have aspirations to maybe play someday with the Frankfurt Galaxy. So I think we're trying to kind of envelop all parts of the organization, and whether it's fan facing, whether it's field facing, we're just doing a really good job right now of being able and willing to take a hard look and ask the difficult questions that are required to make change. So yeah, I mean, proof's in the pudding. We got to go out and win football games for sure, but you have to be impressed with the willingness to go out, put yourself out there, look at your areas of opportunity. I always talk about identify, assessing, and correcting, and we're doing that right now.